If you're suffering from a creative block and your sketchbook is looking sad and empty, today I'm sharing art projects to try when you're bored and don't know what to paint. Today's video is sponsored by Squarespace. From websites and online stores to marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business. Hey friends, welcome back. My name is Shayda Campbell, and today we are doing Art to Do When You're Bored Watercolor Edition. So I'm going to share a bunch of different ideas for creating watercolor art that kind of will just fill your sketchbook, get those creative juices flowing, and make art fun again. If you're having a bit of a creative block, if you just don't know what to paint in your sketchbook, or if you're a beginner and you really don't know where to start, especially with watercolors, all of these ideas I think are gonna be hopefully really good for you. So let's just get into it because I have a ton of fun ideas that I can't wait to share with you. Today I'm going to be working in this little sketchbook. It is from Strathmore. A little bit about how the channel works. I buy random supplies at art stores, and when I like something, I use it all the time. So you may have seen this in a lot of videos recently. We did this little stormy sky. I just love the size of this sketchbook, and it has great paper quality. And it is linked on the new blog, so check out the blog for photos of the artwork and supply links. Okay, let's jump in with our first project. This one is really fun and really simple, and it's mixed media, which means watercolor and something else, in this case, gel pens, and I love mixed media, we know this. So the first thing I'm doing is basically I've developed a color palette, and I'm working in these earthy tones, like a very sea green gray, this gray brown, a sort of yellow ochre, and another gray, of course, lots of gray. And this is another reason I love this sketchbook. The paper is so good and so thick that you can actually use both sides of the page. So that's really nice. So work out a color palette, paint some messy squares, and then let that dry. Ooh, did you like that? Good transition. This is now dry due to the magic of YouTube. And so what I'm doing is taking my white gel pen. This is the Uniball Signo. Don't forget to go to the blog for all the supply links, or check the description for the Amazon links. And what I'm doing is just doing some fun little floral doodles, botanical doodles. Try thinking of different plants and leaves and flowers that are different shapes and different sizes. Most of these are quite intricate, but then I've done one with leaves that are much wider and larger. So I've got a sort of contrast of sizes and shapes. And this was just a really fun piece, and it looks cool, and that's all there is to it. We begin our next project by mixing a nice, rich, saturated color. So you still have to mix in lots of water, but you want a color that is dark and saturated. And I've mixed up a sepia brown, so brown with black for this nice, rich color. And what we're doing here is we're going to practice our brushwork. So if you watch the channel a lot, you know that I do most of my paintings with a pointed, round paintbrush. I tend to use sable hair and synthetic. I like them both. What the nice thing about the pointed round brush is that it has a very fine point, so you can do very thin lines like you see here, or you can use the belly of the brush, drag it across the page, and get larger shapes like the leaves that you see me painting. So what we're doing here is we're painting a beautiful floral on 2 pages, but it's really a wonderful way to practice your brushwork. For some of these flowers, I'm using just the tip of the brush to do all these line details, like the petals of the rose, but then for those leaves of the rose, I'm dragging the belly of the brush across the page in order to make these larger shapes. And everything is very loose, very free. We're just having fun and practicing our florals. It's almost like you're drawing with the paintbrush, and I'm treating the watercolor here very much like ink. I'm using a single color, this dark brown. If you don't mix up enough, don't worry. Chances are if you mix it a second time, you're gonna get it pretty close, and just have fun with it. I'm painting on 2 pages. Again, love this sketchbook because of the nice quality paper, and I think it looks so sophisticated to paint all these delicate flowers and leaves, and it really is a wonderful way to practice your brushwork. The rules of this one are work in a single color, think about doing things in different sizes, large and small, and leave a little bit of negative space, and the whole thing will come together beautifully. Okay, our third project to fill your sketchbook or something to paint when you have no idea what to paint is this one. And the first thing you're going to do here is think about your color palette. I have this really beautiful dark teal blue, a mustard yellow, a peachy pink, and a bit of brown and gray. And with these watery paints all mixed up on my palette, I'm set up to kind of start playing with color and form on the page. And you can see here, I am just painting random shapes, kind of these rounded rectangles and squares and circles. And I'm letting the colors blend and bleed. I just let the corners kind of touch, and you can see where the wet paint touches, you will get a bit of blending. So just have fun, play, try not to overthink it. I always have trouble with that, but if you can, just turn your brain off. Let it dry, and then once that underlay is dry, you're going to mix up a very dark black watercolor paint, or you could use a black ink for this, or you could use a pen or a watercolor pencil. And what we're going to do now is simply paint a silhouette. And of course, you know me, I had to go botanical, but the silhouette could be anything. A flower or a leaf works really well, but you could just do some simple black lines or abstracted shapes. A scribble would actually look really good, like a random line drawing. But again, I'm using my pointed round brush. This is a great way to practice your brush work. Use the tip of the brush for those delicate lines and stems, use the belly of the brush for the leaves, and just work out a loose and lovely silhouette. Our fourth painting to try when you're bored might just be my favorite of the day, of the video, makes more sense actually. So it's a little mini landscape, and you want to just block out a rectangle with washi tape. You're gonna mask out this rectangle. And then what I'm doing is mixing up a couple different colors of gray blue. I've got a really light blue gray, a kind of teal, and a really dark navy almost. So I've got a couple different colors here, and you want to have those ready to go. You could do any shades of blue or green, because what we're going to do is paint an ocean scene, a bit of water. And the way I'm doing that, you'll see how easy this one comes together, is I am just grabbing from the three different colors. I actually wanted to mix in just a little more green into this teal. And I take my brush and I just make a random shape. So kind of slide that brush across the page, just drag it, let your line be thin in one area and then let it get a little thicker in another, and leave just a hint of negative space between each color. So you can see I let the color touch in some areas, and then in others I'll just leave that little hint of white page showing through. And I tend to not even wash my brush in between each stroke. So I'll paint with the navy blue, then I'll grab the teal, and if they blend and mix a little, that tends to be a good thing. Now, as you approach the top of the page, you're going to let your brush strokes get a little thinner, a little smaller. Keep leaving negative space, so allow a bit of page or paper to show through. And I worked a little bit more with the really light gray at the top. So at the top, it's thin lines with the light gray. And then I did a peach colored sun just peeking over the horizon line. I added a light pink sky. And then to finish it off, I added some more peach just in random little lines to indicate fluffy clouds that we can't quite see. The best part of this project, I always say the same thing, is taking off that tape and you've got this crisp white border, and it's such a simple piece, but it has a beautiful look. It really could be something for a gallery wall, and it is so easy to do. Sign it, date it, give it a little title, and it looks even more profesh. Just a friendly reminder that every week I give bonus content on Patreon. This Friday I did some mini coloring pages, so patrons, check it out after today's tutorial. If you're a fan of the channel and you're just getting into painting watercolor flowers and leaves and you're kind of still practicing your skills, I think this one you'll really enjoy because it's all about these loose flowers that are super simple to paint. So what I'm doing here is I have chosen a simple color palette of 3 colors: peach, reddish pink, and brown. And you can see I kind of do these really small 4-petal flowers. They are very loose. The peach flower is simply a swirl, a circle. It couldn't be looser. I tend to butt them up against each other so that the color runs and blends a little bit. And then I just drag that brush out to create some really loose and simple leaf shapes. And I'm just going around the entire page in this way, using the 3 colors in my very simple color palette, letting everything kind of blend, keeping it loose. You don't want too much detail. Too much detail will just take the magic out of this one. So keep it simple, let it dry, and then you're going to come in with a black brush pen, something like a koi brush pen or Tombow, and we are going to add some little details. And again, you're going to be quite loose with this, but get a little more detailed. So we're adding little stamens to the center of each flower, that just some dotting or lines can be the stamen, maybe some lines on the leaves, and really that's all there is to it. And then to really bring it together and make the color palette pop, I have added some black leaves here too. And the nice thing about the brush pen is that it kind of works like a paintbrush. You drag it across the page, you see what shape emerges, and you call it a leaf. It's loose and lovely. Next up is a variation on one that we already did, and that's the silhouette. I just think this is so great. There's so many ways you can play with this idea where you're just doing these messy splotches of color. And I love that because doing the messy bits, it really, first of all, it gets you thinking about color palette, what colors look good together, but then you're playing with the watercolor paint on the page. You can try blooms, try wet into wet, just see what happens. And that's the best thing you can do when you're bored, when you don't know what to paint, when you're not sure what to put in your sketchbook. There's no better thing for an artist to do than experiment. So I really like the way this one starts off. But then of course, I don't want to get too experimental. You know me, I like to keep it a certain way. Can never get too loose. So what's really nice is that after you play around with the color and the watery paints, you get to add this delicate botanical silhouette. And as I said before, it doesn't have to be botanical. You could do a line drawing, a face, a skyline, whatever. But I like doing the botanical silhouettes, and I am using a very saturated dark black watercolor paint on the very tip of my pointed round brush. But for this part of the art, you could use that koi brush pen or even a Sharpie. If you're not confident with your brushwork, do it in pen. This creates such a lovely vertical piece with all the plants rising up from the bottom, and it would also look great in a gallery wall. Okay, my last idea to help fill your sketchbook and make something when you have no idea what to make might seem kind of familiar. This is one that I've seen on Etsy or Pinterest. I have started by masking out a rectangle with washi tape, and then I've mixed up a color palette of peach, pink, a very orangey warm brown, and a little bit of warm gray. Gotta have that warm gray in there. So what I want to do is kind of a sun and moon design, and we are going to start with our pink. And for the sun, we'll just do that little semicircle along the bottom of the page there, butt it right up against your tape line. And then we'll start with one ray of the sun, and just like we did for the waves of that ocean, we're just going to grab from the 4 colors, and you don't even have to wash your brush in between. You know, do a ray in peach, then do one in pink and brown and gray. And the only thing here is just don't alternate them, like don't make a perfect pattern. It will look too stiff. So switch it up a little bit, do a little extra peach, or just, make some mistakes. If you find it easier to pull the brush towards you, do that. I found it was just easier to kind of keep everything straight. Not that it's super straight, but you know what I mean. And yeah, it comes together really nicely. Just make sure you go right out to the outside of the rectangle. You want to go right onto the tape so that you get a nice crisp rectangular piece when the tape comes off. So that's what that looks like. We'll leave that for a second. I'm going to come up here to the other page, and on this one we're just going to do a little moon phases painting. So I start with my light peach color and I do that round full moon. Then we're going to use the pink and the warm gray to paint the waning and waxing moons on both sides, and we just create this really simple and symmetrical design. You've probably seen this before on a tote bag maybe. It's just one of those designs that seems to be popular right now, but why not add it to your sketchbook? I am going to take the tape off. We've got that beautiful border, and that's all there is to it. Let's take a quick look-see through my sketchbook. I love that this book is getting full now, and I'll say it one more time. I really like that I can paint on both sides of the page because that just looks cool when you're flipping through. You've got all this different art and it looks like artsy and fun to have paintings on both sides of the paper. This is probably my favorite, the pink sky, the ocean waves, and we did a couple different silhouettes. Those are so great and experimental. Some loose florals is a great way to think about color palettes and practice your florals. And finally, our cute little sun and moon. I just added some washi tape there for a title. Like simple, really, really simple stuff, but it looks cool and it's fun and it's approachable. And when you're feeling like you don't know what to paint, painting something that you can feel confident in doing is a great way to get started and get back into being creative. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I can't wait to see your versions of this artwork on social media. Don't forget to tag me using hashtag #ShaydaMadeMeDrawIt. And finally, I'd like to thank Squarespace for sponsoring our video today. So I built a website using the Squarespace platform. It was super simple. The first step is pick a template. That's really fun, BT dubs. I chose this one because I liked how photo forward it was. And here is what I made. It took me literally like an hour. I just put in my own photographs, changed a few colors. I kept the fonts. I liked the fonts. The designs are already really striking, I found when browsing the templates. And here's the best part. If you're trying to sell your art online, you can easily build a shop and a beautiful gallery. You can import your photos from your social, whether it's Flickr or Instagram, whatever. They have automatic image scaling, which means you don't have to worry about alignment and things fitting. And they have 24/7 email support. Turn your passion for art and creativity into a real career with your own website. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/ShaydaCampbell to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.